Yeah, we just want to welcome you all for coming to our women cycling event tonight. Obviously, we're celebrating International Women's Day. We've got 4 amazing speakers who are all already with us that are going to be sharing their really cool cycling stories about what cycling means to them and how it's helped them in many different ways. They're all going to talk for about 10 minutes, give or take. And then after each speaker, they're going to you guys can ask them some questions. So if you have any questions, if you just pop them in the chat box. If anyone doesn't know where the chat box is, it's just along the bottom of the screen. And yeah, and then if you just pop them in the chat box, and all our lovely lady pedal girls that are with us today, we've got Beth and Hannah and Lois and Lily. They'll collect your questions and ask the different, yeah, they're waving there, that's Lois. They will, yeah, ask the speakers your questions. We're going to do 2 speakers, then have a 10-minute break, and then do the last 2 speakers, and then at the end hopefully we'll have a bit of time, hopefully 15-20 minutes for you guys if anyone wants to share their stories that's joined us tonight. And again, if you would like to share your stories, you can just pop your name and say that in the chat box, and at the end we'd love to hear some of you guys. So just a bit of housekeeping, as I said, just keep on mute while whoever's speaking. Obviously we'd love for you to keep your cameras on. I know some of you might not feel comfortable. We are going to record tonight's session, which you might have heard earlier, and we're going to put a few bits on our social media. We will put our social media links, one of our lovely lady pedals, we'll put that in the chat box, so you can follow us and see what other events we're doing throughout the year. Have I got any other? Yeah, so that's all the housekeeping. And then, as I say, yeah, we do many different events. What is Lady Pedal? It's a Manchester collective, women's collective for cycling, and anyone that identifies as a woman can join, but we also have some events that men can join as well. And we just do fun like social rides, we do food bank rides to help the Emmeline Pankhurst Centre in Manchester. We do, you know, collections, we do like confidence boosting, we do bike maintenance, we do breeze ride training if you want to become a bike sort of leader, and we do all these different things, and as I say, if you follow us on social media, you know, we've got all Instagram, Facebook, you can find out what else we're doing throughout the year. And obviously tonight's event is still online. We do lots of things in person as well, but tonight's event is online just because we wanted to, we realised we could get people from further afield. So as we've seen in the chat box already, we've got people from like Cardiff and Worcester and all over the country, and one of our speakers, Saoirse, is all the way down in Oxford. So before, I think we'll get started with our first speaker. So we've got Ayisatu Amor, and she's often out cycling with her daughter. She's the founder of a health coaching service called Idaraya, if I said that right, Life CIC, which aims to empower women in communities that might face racial inequality. So I'm going to hand over to the first speaker, Ayisatu, and yeah, hope you enjoy our first speaker for tonight.
Hello everybody, I am so privileged to see all these people paying attention to me. I feel like I could just act the fool now and you were like under my control. This is marvelous. But no, thank you so much for turning up this evening. Happy International Women's Day. And I've just been doing a bunch of stuff, moving my body, because that is largely my motivation. I find a lot of respite in being able to move my body and the fact that I'm able to do the things that I can with it. And I feel like a lot of people perhaps don't appreciate their bodies enough, and I was definitely one of those people who used to have a lot of criticism for how I looked and what I was able to do. But once I shifted my mentality into just relishing the things I was able to do, I found that I did a lot more. So just to give you an idea as to the space that I exist from, for International Women's Day, I just found different excuses to move my body. So in the morning I did a This Girl Can class, and in the afternoon, I've gone off to do a bike ride with a friend. I didn't take my daughter out this time. She was in nursery, so I got a respite. And yeah, and I was supposed to do pole fitness, and I might still go to pole fitness after this just to wrap up the day in terms of being physically active. But I think more than anything else, what I've tried to do through my organization is show people that there's so many things you can do to care for yourself. And there's so many ways you can care for yourself. And you don't have to be elite or expert. And you don't have to be elite or expert or the most spectacular or the through and through has all the gear person to be into things. I define myself as a multi-passionate person. And I think that's the nice PC way I find that I can explain my busybody tendencies. I'm someone who enjoys doing a lot, and I try to invite other people into that space to do what they can for themselves. So at Idaraya Life, we've been doing bike rides, and some of the women that are coming to join us are people who have never cycled in their lives, not even as young children, and they're coming to us in their 40s, and they're convinced they're going to fall. They're convinced they're too big to ride. They're convinced they don't have the coordination. And I'm so proud to be able to say that a lot of them have come, and within an hour of doing work with me, they're cycling unaided, and they're able to like go in a straight line. And the sense of pride and satisfaction, some people have been moved to tears from being able to do that. And that's something that I completely take advantage of, because I've been cycling for as long as, I don't know, I have no idea when I started cycling, but it feels like it's been like my entire life. And so to be able to invite that feeling in other people, where they can just recognize that, oh my God, I can do this. I have the capacity, I have the things that I need. There's so many things that you then believe you can do from just being able to do one thing. And I found that it's worked out that way for me. And I found that it's worked that way in other people as well. So beyond cycling though, I enjoy being in the outdoors, and I go hiking, I go walking, and we do the more classical exercise classes. Zumba is a surprising favorite. The women like to dance. The women like to dance in our group as well. So we find excuses to do things like that, and we try to provide a holistic support network for people. So we don't just do physical activity things. We provide some craft for health services, where people get to process emotions through the process of doing things like embroidery and using tie-dye to be creatively expressive. And what I'm hoping I can show you more than anything else in my bit of time with you is that there's so many ways to get satisfaction from life that don't cost a ton. And there's so many things at your sort of like fingertips that you could do. And you don't necessarily have to be an expert or have to be like the most spectacular version of whatever it is that you're trying to engage people with. I make the joke that a lot of the success that I have in life comes serendipitously, that I'm often just the person who happens to be in the space, not because I'm good, not because I'm worthy, but because I've turned up and put my hat in the ring. And it's worked out so far, so I'm not changing tact anytime soon. But I think it'll be great if all of you just really enjoyed the fact that you turned up. Like, I came today, I was invited by Beth. I was so privileged and so complimented by the invitation. And the fact that you've turned up makes me feel nice that, oh, right, you actually cared, and that's done something nice for me. And I definitely would like to invite you to turn up as you are, wherever it is that you find yourself, not judging yourself before you even make yourself available to people, because you never know what kind of effects you have on people. I'll give you a story of one of the older women who joined our health coaching program. She's someone who's a born and bred Wiganer. She's living in the home that she was born in. You know, she inherited it after her mother passed away. She's never lived anywhere else, but she had no friends on her block because she had no one that she really associated with, and she felt really, really isolated, and just took a bunt and decided to join our health coaching program, which was online and involved us having one online coaching session and one real life health walk. And we did that. And for the first couple of weeks, she was a bit quiet, but as soon as she got comfortable, you saw that she was a lively woman. She was really, really quite joyful. She was a joker. She was really interested in living a fuller life. And so from that, she's now become someone who goes away on holidays and goes away to do hikes of her own accord. And that's from someone who is pretty grown and could be arguably said to be set in her ways and was where she was going to be. But through just quite a little bit of prompting, I didn't do anything. I'm not a counselor. like I provide coaching support to people, but just from giving her the space to explore ways that she could be active and could engage with people and could socialize. She's got a job now, which she had been looking for one for quite some time. She's found ways to get respite from her caring duties. And so things like that really do encourage me to keep doing what it is that I'm doing, and encourages me to seek out support from people in my circle as well, because it's amazing. It's amazing how helpful people are. And so, yeah, I think for my time with you, I just wanted to share that with you, that turning up as whoever you are, wherever you are, will do something for someone else. So please don't put pressure on yourself to have to be some spectacular version or a better version or a more improved version before you start doing what it is that you can do. Like, you're more than enough to do awesome stuff for us in the world. And yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm going to stop because I can talk forever.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. I totally agree. Like, I've really got into roller skating recently, and I think any form of outdoor activity can really help your physical being, your mental being. And I'm by no way particularly good at roller skating, but I just really enjoy it. And sometimes I'm so hard on myself, but I'm like, you know what, I'm doing it, and that's actually okay.
Yeah, it is. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, we've got a cool roller disco over here in Wigan, and they have an adults night once a month. You should totally come through.
Yeah,
have you?
Yeah. It's really cool. I want to go again. So I think there's probably some questions. I don't know if one of the girls, I can't remember who it was, Hannah or...
So I've been looking out for questions. We've not got loads in the chat, but if anyone's going to put them through, then I will filter them through. One that we have got is actually from Beth. So what are the biggest barriers that you come across with the women that you work with? And have you got any solutions from your experience?
Very nice setup for me, Beth. Thank you very much. The biggest barrier that we have is that people just feel they can't do it. Like, they physically feel as though it's impossible for them to go cycling. And so what I have adopted is like a no excuses model. So when people go, oh, I don't have a bike, I'm like, I'm going to provide you a bike. I don't have a helmet, I'm going to bring you a helmet. Oh, I don't know how to get there, I'll get you a taxi. Oh, I don't know if the time will be good, when are you going to be free? And ultimately, like, giving no excuses, it's like finding, I'm just going to turn up because she's trying.
You make it so hard for them to say no.
You know, they generally said that. I remember one of the bit of feedback I got was just like, well, you made it seem like I was going to be a terrible person if I didn't turn up, because you gave us everything. And I don't care if it's going to be guilt tripping you that gets you to come out. You're going to start. And if you like it, you like it. And if you don't like it, you can say you tried and you don't fancy it. But goodness, I think a pet peeve of mine, if there's anything that could really trigger me, is people not trying. Not trying is something that I can't live by. So that's probably the biggest barrier is I can't do it. But if you give all the tools, and then it's up to them to literally just go like, no, I can't be bothered. I'll make you admit that at least. So yeah, that would be my answer to that.
That's brilliant. That's an amazing answer. It reminds me of the time when I reframed all of those times where I said I don't have time, reframed it as I don't prioritize that, and then realigned my priorities. So yeah, I totally can feel that. That's a really cool way of approaching it, you know, like no excuses for anybody. I've got another question from Swelly. So nice to see you, Swelly. How can we get more diversity in cycling?
Okay, well, the simple answer is turning up as you are and not waiting to be like, I come through as someone who doesn't have a deep amount of knowledge in terms of cycling, in terms of professional cycling, competitive cycling. I care about cycling. I want more people cycling. I want to see a more diverse range of people competing for the UK in cycling. And so I kept on turning up. I came to meetings, I came to sessions, I run the rides that I can. If there's training, I come. If there's an event, I come there. I turn up, and for me turning up, I'm now the diversity and inclusion officer for British Cycling Northwest. So I still don't have expert knowledge, and I've said to them that I don't have expert knowledge, but what I do care about, I've made very clear to them. So I think definitely opening the door and saying to people that you are welcome in this space is very, very helpful. And I think it's important to recognize that, like, this is a Manchester-based organization, right? And the invitation will be Manchester heavy. But just looking at the screen now, we can see the amount of diversity that we've got in just this room. And this is from people who work specifically in diversity. It's not the easiest thing to get done in the UK. So I feel like that's probably the next thing I would want people to appreciate, that it is work. There's a lot of mistrust. There's a lot of lack of knowledge. People don't know they can be in this world. People don't feel like they're entitled to be in this world. And that's not just racial sort of like bias, that's just across the border of all our characteristics. So I think it's really important that the door is open and you acknowledge that it's gonna be hard. It's not gonna be easy. Once you've even opened the door, sometimes you have to provide a taxi and a bike and a helmet, and then offer lunch and snacks and drinks and a day out after. But you might need to do that, but what you will get at the end of it is a richer environment that is more sustainable, more long lasting, that will just provide you better returns and just make for a more reflective space to be in.
Absolutely. So those of us, I'm sure there's a few of us in this Zoom call that do work in cycling professionally. For those of us that work there, it's not just opening the door. We've actually got to go out, sue people and drag them in, even if they don't want to come. Yeah. I'll bear that in mind. I'll take it on board. Got a couple more questions that we're just going to run through. Got the last couple of minutes. That was a brilliant answer. Lois wants to know what kind of bike rides you go on with your daughter.
I tend to go on easy ones because she loves it. So she sleeps. Once she's on the bike for like 10-15 minutes, she's out. And because I can't handle quite strapping her head to her seat, I have to make sure I'm on a nice smooth ride, so at least if her head's bumping, it's not like it doesn't feel like it's gonna snap. So but we've got, like, I'm really spoiled for choice. I live in Wigan, so you're never more than like 10 minutes away from the canal, really. So Amazing. As soon as you get to the canal, you can go Leeds or Liverpool. Like we got to Leeds today, my friend and I. Like we just got on the canal and we rolled just before Pennington Flash. So nice. Yeah, it's nice that we're able to do that. But those are the kind of rides that I do with my daughter.
That's beautiful. That's really nice. So one more question for you, if I can. It's sort of a mixed question from Caroline and Cara. So it's about fear of roads. So Caroline was asking about how do you help people get over that fear of roads, because she's struggling to get her kids over that hurdle. Then Cara's sort of adding to that, how do you do that, but for adults who've not ridden on the road? So, dual forked question aimed at kids and adults.
Well, the short answer is have a kid like mine who's fearless and doesn't care about safety. To be honest, what I've ended up doing, I think we were lucky in that we lived in a place that was quite bike friendly when my son was a bit younger. So he was very familiar with just riding in roads from a very, very young age because we could afford to do that. And more than anything else, I think with kids, if you practice in neighborhoods, like just in the neighborhoods where, you've got your 5 mile, 10 mile traffic of just being out there, I think it's more being able to position yourself somewhere and know that you're not suddenly going to get taken off the road by a car. Because for some reason, everyone, like people who do have the fear of on-road cycling are convinced that car drivers don't know how to drive and are determined to run them over. And it's like, how often does it happen? More often than we would like. I would say that it is something where once you get people to recognize that, yes, you are entitled to be on the road, which is what I have said to the women that I've managed to take out onto the road. And I deliberately ride with them on the road as opposed to like trying to just stay close to the pavement. When it comes to adults, I try to say to them, like, look, we're on the road and they're going to have to slow down behind us. And I share the story of a bike ride that I went with the Breeze ladies over here in Wigan, which was a 33-mile ride, which is easy peasy for loads of people, was tremendous for me. I was the youngest by like 15 years and I was lagging behind. I went there cocky. I wore the wrong pants. And no, we don't want to do a long ride. But what I do remember is we were on a country road at some point, and it was easily maybe about 2 miles of riding, and the cars were just behind us, and that was just it. And we were like just going, and they were behind us for easily, it was way long. It felt like 20 minutes. It probably wasn't that long. Yeah. But having that experience made it clear to me, like, okay, that's that's just what it is. So I think
For sure.
managing to practice with people on quieter roads so that they're comfortable physically being on the road, and then consistently just assuring them that you are entitled to be here. We can be on the road. And I think you can only build up to it. I don't think it's necessarily a light switch that flicks. You sort of do it bit by bit until you just raise the
100%.
The heart to be on the road.
I've done some similar coaching myself, and that is definitely one of the key pillars of what I've taught as well. You have a right to be there, and as soon as you get that, then you're going to be in a much better place. But I think that covers all the questions from the chat, and that is all of our time for you. But thank you so much for covering all of that and going into all of the detail, and it's been amazing to hear your story. I'm sure we will hear much more from you in the future.
No worries at all. Thank you so much.
Oh yeah, thank you so much. That was so interesting, and I think that's so true. Like I myself, I have a car and a bike, so I'm quite good when I see cyclists. I do give them a lot of room, but I think that is because I am a biker too. But yeah, you're right. It's just getting people to build it up and build their confidence. But yeah, thank you so much. So our next speaker with us tonight is Eve Holt, who I think is down and to that side. So my notes are, she grew up on a tandem bike. She's the Labour and Co-op Councillor for Chorlton. She's a strong advocate for walking and cycling. She set up a number of projects and continues to ride on bikes for a lot of her transport for herself and her family. So over to you, Eve.
Thank you. It's brilliant to be here, and I could just listen to Ayisatu all day quite happily. So I'm just full of love for the room and for the stories already. So I'm sat here in Wally Range in Manchester. Anyone that wants to anchor whereabouts I am, which is where I grew up, and where I'm a councillor and also provide student leadership for GM Moving, which is Greater Manchester's ambition to design moving back into everyday life and work and play across the city region. So cycling and active travel has very much become my work as well as my personal passion. But when I was thinking about today, actually, it felt hard. I was thinking if we were physically in a room, it'd feel really easy because you could just tell a story and engage. But on here, it felt like I was thinking, what is the story I would tell? And I guess because I couldn't think of one story, it feels like cycling has made my story. And it's more that cycling has shaped my whole life, literally, from when I was tiny. So I've decided instead, and some of you might know, some of you I know here, friends, have seen that I occasionally turn to write poems. So last night I've tried to write it as a poem, but it comes with a warning. It's definitely a work in progress, as is my story. So maybe you can help me finish it off, but I thought it'd be better than just talking at you in a long narrative. And I do have some images, so please indulge me as I very happily enjoyed capturing photographs from my life as preparation for today. So it's called And Still I Ride. It's a bit of a homage really to the bike. You have always been there for me, keeping me on track, since in a papoose on my parents' back. Be it circling in the playground or up and down our street. You brought me joy and independence, my own wheels and a comfy seat. You got me to nursery, to school, to the shops, the park and the swimming pool. You taught me about risk. You showed me my power. You helped me be strong, to look forward and not cower. You took me on adventures on the train in the rain, uphill and down dale and squealing through puddles. Across the Irish Sea, we sang as we rode from B&B to B&B. And of course, you came in tow when off to uni I did go, and you opened up a world of possibility as I travelled from city to city. My well-tread tyres carried me from those dreamy Oxford spires. Your gears saved my tears on those Bristol hills, and you helped reduce my daily bills. And when I was bound to London town, it was you I did bring, and your bell I did ring. Through the streets and the parks of Kennington, Clapham and Stockwell, you helped me be on time to stay fit and stay well. And then, when I returned here to the streets of Manchester, to where our story began, me now a mum, and my mum now a speedster nan. You made life all the more fun, for purpose, for play. You enabled me to do things my way, with 1 kid, 2, then 3. Thanks to you, I was still free. Dressed as a witch, a suffragette or a bumblebee, you taught me local her story. You connected me to place, you showed me local gems. Basically, you're ace. Your limits have showed no ends. You introduced me to friends upon friends upon friends, and gave me a new sense of purpose, as together we've helped lead change. One revolution at a time. School streets, kiddical mass, bike buses, community events, cycle projects, led rides, bike fixing, mixing, tricks and BMXing, Wally range on wheels, dancing spokes. We sure showed those blokes. Bike hive, bike ride, push, pedal, scoot. It's been an absolute hoot. Our streets and bike deliveries to boot. You showed me the strength of community and unity, of people power and pedal power. And you continually lift me when I'm feeling flat. You help me transport this and that. And there are so many times that you've saved me when my head's been full and life feels dull and hard. You've given me that boost. You've kept my blood pumping and my heart thumping and my joints moving and my body grooving. With you, there's no need to sit and wait in traffic jams or for the bus. And you make it safe for me to go out late. You emancipate every day. So I never needed to drive, and instead, with each bike ride, I feel I'm doing just my little bit to help us humans to stay alive and to strive and reimagine how we get about for a life that's greener, fairer and kinder. You're a constant reminder of the simplicity and the possibility to make that cultural shift. So thanks for making me a part of your story, that story of bike revival and human survival, of a growing movement to enable cycling for all. Thank you. It's been an absolute ball. That's it. Let me finish it.
Wow, thanks, Eve. What a poem. That was great. We've got, I think, Han, who's somewhere's on here. I think she's going to ask some questions.
Yes, hi Eve, thank you so much for that poem, it was amazing. So just while we're waiting for some questions to come in, I have actually got a question of my own. So you mentioned obviously that you're a councillor. Could you talk a bit more about your role as a councillor and how you take your passion for cycling in that role?
Yep. So I'm a councillor in Chorlton, for anyone that means nothing to. That's in South Manchester, and it is a place where, so now we've actually got the Chorlton Walking and Cycle Way, which is kind of one of the flagship pieces of infrastructure across Greater Manchester that is forms a critical part of the B network. So anyone's familiar with what Chris Boardman's been doing for the last few years with Transport for Greater Manchester, it's meant to be kind of the first sort of flagship, really key piece of infrastructure that connects Chorlton with the city centre. So, I mean, that's been one area of, it was already, ambitions are already there before Andy Burnham got elected, before Chris Boardman was appointed, before there was such a thing as a B network. There was already an ambition to have it, but it was a far more kind of compromised route. So a big part of my role for the last few years has been trying desperately to ensure that it is as the best it possibly can be. And by that, for me, that means that it really does cater for everybody. So it's not compromised in terms of width, so that it can be cycled by somebody on a tricycle or somebody with kids in tow, somebody on a cargo bike. And I have to say, like, I think we all know that there's constant conflict about allocation of space. So every moment like that gets squeezed, and there's pressure for it to be squeezed, and there's so much that has to go on behind the scenes to continue to try and literally fight, it feels like, for every inch, and to remind people to not just picture, to be honest, you're kind of image of a mammal, of a man on two wheels in lycra just whizzing along, and to go, this has to be about designing for everybody and designing for people for whom currently they don't cycle, and designing for people who, you know, have got other people, as I said, in tow and on all sorts of bikes of all shapes and sizes. And that really means shifting the mindset of both our policymakers and our engineers across the board. So that's been kind of my mission. And as a councillor, you really kind of, you know, that all plays out. You get all the tensions, you get people emailing you when they're complaining about there's been disruption to their roads. And then thankfully, because people know that I'm really passionate about enabling active travel, I do also get people messaging me saying, you know, oh, they're frustrated because the surfacing isn't so good and it's flooded and the thing's taking too long and there's too many compromises. So it's constantly that negotiation really, but setting out what I hope is a really clear vision for, do you know what, this has got to happen because we've got to address congestion, we've got to shift our patterns of how we get about, and we have to do that in a way which is designed for diversity and includes everybody, and help people then to make use of that infrastructure.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I think in Manchester especially, we have such great advocates for cycling in levels of influence, and that's really inspiring for people like me to get out cycling. I actually did my first breeze ride over Christmas, and we tried out the new Cyclops junction just outside of Chorlton, so that was really amazing. Yeah. So we've got a question from Lois. Lois has asked, what has been one of your favourite journeys you've made with your bike, big or small, long or short?
Oh, good question. I mean, for me, it is about the joy of the journey. So I don't track how far I go. I do some long rides, but it is about the fun. So it often is the little everyday today, to be honest. It's when I catch myself singing out loud. Ayisatu and I were both said we both do that, you know, when you realise and you smile at people on the way and you have that little interaction in part of a very normal day. I actually really enjoy cycling, so I cycle into town repeatedly every day, and it is very different now. At least there is a cycleway along part of it. I actually really enjoy as well when it's kind of really wet, you know, when it feels really hard. It sounds wrong, doesn't it? It feels wet and it's dark and it's cold, and then you do it and you just feel so much better for it. And you go, do you know what, whatever the weather, wherever, whenever, it just brings joy that it just wouldn't if you were travelling by most other means. So it's the simple stuff. I guess there's big adventures. So there's, I didn't end up showing my slides because I couldn't get it up in time, but there's an image of me and my mum when I was on the tandem when I was about 4, and we went off to Ireland and travelled around Ireland, and it's always stuck in my head because it was just brilliant. And then we went and did the Way of the Roses recently to kind of relive really together, sort of having some long journeys, which was fun.
Oh, amazing. And I suppose this next question actually links in a bit with that previous question from Evelina. She asked, what is your favourite local circular route? I live locally on Upper Chorlton Road.
I'm just round the corner. Hi. I'm on Dudley Road. Probably wave to you from my this was a garage. Let's just tell you this. Where I'm sat now would have been a garage for someone's car, and it's now my home. That just shows you about having to reimagine our space. Anyway, my favourite circular route. So I do enjoy cycling along the Fallowfield Loop. I do enjoy off-road routes. I've got 3 kids, and you know, we go all over the place. I do enjoy sometimes just the little loop locally. I've spent a lot of time at Alex Park, particularly over the last couple of years, in being able to go through Alexandra Park, along Fallowfield Loop, to Chorlton Park, to Longford Park, and go actually within a small space, just be reminded of how much green space we do have. And those little pocket parks and bits along the way. So yeah, there's some local routes like that, as well as, you know, longer getting out of Manchester. But generally, I'm very much about getting from A to B for me in a busy life, really. And it's making joy the little journeys and the little things you see on the way.
Yeah, and I suppose for anybody on this call who might not be from Manchester, we've got this amazing piece of infrastructure called the Fallowfield Loop, which kind of connects South Manchester together, and it sort of takes the line of an old railway line, and it's just really great connecting route, and as Eve says, it connects a lot of parks together, and it's really beautiful. Ayisatu asks, what is the furthest you've gone with your kids? What do you think is the biggest challenge to having women commute to work via bicycle?
Yeah, so the furthest with my kids is it's a long time ago actually. So in looking at photographs for tonight, I was reminded where we did recycle to Southport. We did kind of coast to coast over a few days. They were only about 4, 6 and 8 at the time. They were little, so one of them was on a tag along for some of the journey. And then they would come off it, and it was just brilliant just to have. I don't know any of you got kids, like getting out of the house can be hard work, right? Like 3 kids, I had 3 kids under 5, just getting out of the door to go to the park was hard work. But there was something amazing about going off for 4 days with just a pannier and 3 kids on bikes and this like minimal packing of anything. And just the freedom then over several days to just get on your bike and cycle, and they all loved it and they were all brilliant, and it just made life suddenly feel so much more simple than just sometimes getting out to do, you know, day-to-day stuff can feel hard. And it definitely, they were inspired by that and want to do more, but we haven't done as much as I would like, but hopefully one day.
Oh, are they all quite confident then on when they're cycling? Yeah,
they are. Yeah, so it's great because they do all cycle to school. They all cycle to their mates, and it's given them independence as 3 teenagers in Manchester that I don't think they would have otherwise. Which definitely brings me a lot of joy. And people talk about taxing. I don't drive, so I don't taxi them. They have a bike and they've got feet and they can use a bus and stuff. It doesn't. I mean, I still have, I guess, my heart in my mouth, you know, sometimes when they go off. So it's not to say that it doesn't come without that feeling still, which I hope one day goes away, and I hope parents don't have that fear and can just be really happy to see their kids have that freedom to go out on their bikes and get about. But I don't stop them. I encourage them to continue, even if it leaves me a little bit nervous.
Yeah, I think all mums have a bit of fear every now and again. So getting them out is good. Debs asks, one of the biggest barriers for cycling in Bury is the safety and infrastructure. How do we encourage our council to spend on making it safer?
Yeah, and it is still, it's a massive issue. I think there's a few things. I think helping elected members see that there is a wish for it and to recognise that that is from a diversity of local people. I think I'm still surprised at how many people I speak to that still have a very narrow view of who rides a bike, and they still have this model of a cyclist. And I almost feel like, do you not see? It's almost like they don't see the people actually out on bikes. They've had this sort of narrative given to them for such a long time about who rides a bike or who doesn't. And I feel like I spend a lot of time just trying to shift that through images and through stories and through experience to say, I know it's different depending where you live, but I live in Whalley Range. If I leave my house, I can cycle any distance and I will see people of all ages, all ethnicities, all genders, getting about in a very normal day-to-day way to do various things. And it's supporting elected members and officers and others to recognise that, and to recognise that being able to provide active travel infrastructure is critical to how we address inequality. It's how we improve healthy life outcomes and healthy life expectancy. It's critical to how we achieve net zero and how we address, ecological breakdown. So the key issues today of a health crisis, of inequality and sustainability can all be helped address if we support more people to be active and to travel actively. And it's quite simple, really. Like, lots is really overwhelming that's hard to do on those issues, but this is something we can act on now. And yes, it means reallocation of space, but to be honest, it's allocating space to people to get about in a way that's good for people, place and planet. Like, it's a no-brainer. We just have to crack on and be brave, but we have to set out that vision that it's not just about travel, it's about healthy, livable places to live. It's about places that we all connect and we're all happy, and it's genuinely more joyful, and gives people a greater sense of agency, and shift away from that car dependency that doesn't do anybody any good, but people understandably feel dependent because we haven't given them an alternative.
Are you finding that people are starting to kind of listen to that message more in recent years?
Yeah, there's definitely a big shift. I would say a few years ago, I felt like I was quite on my own with just a few other councillors, and now there's a big increase, both in terms of elected members and in terms of officers, in recognising that, one, the shift has to happen, and two, it can happen, and that we are, we can make strides, and that it's wanted. But it's still anything like that where there's still conflict. People are fearful, and people are fearful of anything that creates negative backlash. So I think helping equip them with the details around all the benefits, and helping provide that narrative about the vision, and helping all of you, letting people know when it's good, not just when it's bad, what's good and what do we want more of.
Yeah, could definitely do with some more positivity. So I think we've just got one last question from Stephen. He asks, how do you include e-bikes and scooters within cycle lanes, etc.?
Yeah, it's a good one. And I think, so if any of you have been to countries where there's good cycling infrastructure, and again, I want to say, and for me, it's about cycling and walking. I mean, we mustn't forget walking, and one shouldn't compromise the other. But where's good cycling infrastructure, what you get is you get far more people cycling on all types of bikes and all types of micromobility day to day, and they don't go so fast, and they look out for each other, and the rules of the road work for them, so you follow them. I think the key problem we've got at the moment is the way that our infrastructure is designed and the rules of the road don't work for people, and you've only got a small number of people cycling, and a lot of them are more likely to be on two wheels and going fast. So they're not as used to looking out for each other. So I absolutely think that if you build the infrastructure and you build it wide enough so people can pass each other, and you create a culture that more people are riding, people slow down, is what we've seen, and people treat it differently, and they start to, have more upright bikes, and they start to have more stuff to carry with them. They don't wear lycra, they don't wear helmets. It just becomes a normal thing, and it becomes humanised, and it's far more diverse. So to be honest, the main thing is to just make sure we're creating future-proofed infrastructure that is wide enough to cater for different modes and for people travelling at different speeds, and not just limit it. I think e-scooters, I think the jury's out still, than it is for me, as to the challenges they present. They can be a good disruptor, but they can also be problematic, I suppose. But yeah, I think we have to design for all ultimately, and anything that's not a car is got to be good.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Eve. The poem that you shared with us was amazing, and your answers to the questions have been really great as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Eve. I love your quote of just it sums it up. Having a bike is good for the environment, it's good for people, it's just good in every way. So I really like that, and that does sum it up for me anyway. So thank you to our first two speakers. What an amazing start to an event. We're going to do a little 10-minute break now, so it's 7:46, so if we come back at 7:56, and we'll have our last two speakers, so obviously you guys can get a drink or do whatever you need to do, and we'll see you. So it's 7:56. I know some people got their cameras off. Hopefully people are rejoining us. We've actually had a couple of new people. I think 3 more people have joined us. So hi to everyone who's just joined. This is our Women's Cycling Story event, celebrating International Women's Day, but we've also got a couple of guys here with us today, so that's really cool. So yeah, it's for everyone. We're Lady Pedal, we're a Manchester cycling collective who ran lots of fun cycling events throughout the year, and you can find out about us. We've put our social media tags in the chat box. Lady Pedal's about being a safe space for women to share their stories. All women, everyday women, not just your athletes, but all the women that are here and the gentlemen that are here today can share their cycling stories, and hopefully that by hearing other people's stories it might inspire yourself to share your own, or just to get active and get out there. I forgot to say this at the start, but we want to thank Manchester Active for supporting Lady Pedal. They're all about encouraging people to be more healthy and active in the Manchester region, and also This Girl Can, who've supported Lady Pedal with some funding so we can do events like this, and their aims are to break down the barriers that prevent women and girls from participating in physical activity. So we've got our third speaker now, which is Cara. I just want to do a little intro to her. So after transitioning, she struggled to get back into exercise. Cycling not only brought her joy and freedom, but also made her feel really good about her body again. So I'd love you to welcome Cara, and she's our third speaker for today. Hi, Cara.
Hiya. Can I have my slides? Is that okay? Yeah. I'm quite nervous about speaking publicly. It's been a while since I've done it, so I've made myself some slides to talk through. I've titled this presentation, I Quite Like Bikes. There's not really a deeper meaning to it than that, but I'm just going to talk around the subject a little bit. Can I have the next slide, please? Okay, right, so here am I. I am a mum. I'm a programmer by day, musical by night. I have OCD. I'm bisexual and polyamorous, and I'm also quite tall. That's my Twitter bio. I've just copied and pasted it here rather than think of anything else. I'm a transgender cyclist. So I transitioned in 2018, and I actually started cycling in 2020. That's a little bit of a lie. I cycled as a kid, but I stopped in adulthood and then kind of picked it up again when I was the ripe old age of 30. My star sign is Cancer. My favourite colour is blue, and there would be more words there. The template needed extra words in it. So go to the next page. Oh, it's gone too far. There we go. So a key theme of my talk is transgenderism. I think it's important, if you are a person who is transgender, to kind of build an identity outside of being trans too. But I think the core of this talk is really about how cycling kind of helped me to navigate the process of transition in a way that maybe people wouldn't always think about naturally. So it's learning to love yourself. Gender is hard. You know, I think that everybody who has grown up a woman or a girl and grown into a woman has at some point had social pressure to be perfect or to be a certain kind of way. And I sort of walked into that at the age of 27 and kind of met myself in a world where it's like, you have to be perfectly feminine and thin, and you have to look like a cis woman, you have to be acceptable, and you have to be short. I'm 6'3", working on it. You know, I think maybe if I really work hard, I could lose an extra couple of inches. But in many ways, you know, I stand out and I don't necessarily meet the norms of what people are expecting. And, you know, that can be a challenge. Can I change the page? No. Is it actually changing for you and then later for me? Okay, we've gone one too far. Next one. Yeah, so you don't necessarily meet these norms, but you, I don't know, you just have to find a way to fit in with it, don't you? So one thing that I have always found that helps me when I'm going through a difficult period with body image or just a generally difficult part of life is exercise. And there are, you know, huge benefits to exercise when you're having a hard time. You know, endorphins are brilliant. Moving your body feels really good. It's a great way to connect with what really matters and sort of recontextualize and prioritize things. But actually, it's hard to exercise when you're trans. You know, body image is difficult enough, and I'm sure anybody who's had like their body change in major ways throughout their life, which is most of us, has kind of maybe had some understanding of how it can be hard to put yourself out there after that change. There's politics. There's a lot of headlines about trans women in sports, in changing rooms, online, in the papers. There's actually, it sometimes throws into hate speech, you know, and there's a lot of anxiety and fear of being harassed. Like if I use the gym, mostly I have to stay quiet and hide as best as I can and kind of blend in, which is hard when you're 6'3" and generally quite a noisy person. I don't really like the gym very much. So I was kind of looking for other things to do. And can they change the slide? Thank you. I tried running for a bit. I used to run quite frequently back in my early 20s, but I have been harassed while running. Sometimes quite nasty sort of transphobic abuse, sometimes just generally quite gendered nastiness. I also, you know, at the time of this, I have a 4-year-old now, but obviously at the time he was 2. And it's quite hard to fit regular running in, actually. Like if you have a small child, I'm sure a lot of parents have this experience of just, when do you find time to regularly exercise? Because I have a very, supportive and hardworking partner, but like, we've both got to figure out how to get the movement into our days. And actually, like, cycling was something that really helped with this. So can we change the slide? I was dating somebody in early 2020 who was quite a keen cyclist, and they kind of encouraged me to get back on my bike. So I had a tiny, tiny green bike, much too small for me, and some big hills to climb. The actual bike was a bit bigger than my son's one. It's on the next slide. So the real bike was this one, which not much of an improvement, but still far, far too small for me. It wasn't as rusty as this at the time. Again, can I have the next slide? Sorry. So why cycle? You know, for me, one of the big draws was the freedom to kind of go where I wanted to. You know, like the previous speaker, I can't drive. I don't really want to drive. It seems like, I'm rubbish at it. I get distracted. And I really like the idea of being able to go where I wanted, essentially for free. So for me, like, cycling had this huge draw, but on the next slide, there's some more advantages for why cycling. You know, health and well-being. Climbing up a massive hill gives you strong legs and powerful lungs. I'm quite asthmatic, so actually being able to have like a higher base level of breathing was really good for me. You know, I live on the edge of the Peak District, and it's so tempting there. It's so beautiful, and I was just finding it hard to make time to go and see it. And actually, I'm really blessed because, like, today, I just went for a ride into the Peak District with a friend and had a nice adventure on my lunch break. And that's a really, really lovely thing to be able to do. Excitement and flavour. I am a clumsy person, but I'm also somebody who loves extreme sports. You know, cycling off-road. We have a fairly nice mountain bike track in the centre of Sheffield, and you know, gravel cycling can be quite challenging as well. So that can be as fun as it is scary. Did take a nice tip a few days ago. I managed to get scratches all down my face. But there's also self-love, which, you know, I'll get to a bit more because it's sort of the thesis of this presentation. So how did I get started? As I say, it was only a few years ago. In the first 6 months, it was horrible. Sheffield, okay, sorry, I forgot to mention that I live in Sheffield. Sheffield is a very hilly city. I mean, I sort of live halfway at the end of a valley, so anywhere I go, I have a pretty nasty climb to either get there or get home. But, you know, it does get easier. And I think that that's actually a really useful lesson to people who cycle in a hilly place a lot of the time, is that, like, it can be horrible for a long time, but then hills stop feeling awful and they start being something that you might even start to enjoy. And a bike that fits was difficult too. You saw my bike there. It's, I think, actually a child's bike, a large child's bike. But I picked up cycling during the global shortage of bikes. So in the end, what I did was I bought an ex-hire bike from Derwent Hire in the Peak District. So it was a bike that I could sit on that would fit my day-to-day life. And I also got a vintage road bike from A Different Gear, which is an amazing business here in Sheffield that refurbishes old bikes and sells them at a very reasonable price. It's just, I hate wastage, so it's really nice to be able to get things that have been refurbished as well. So on the next page, I think there's a picture of them. There's actually a child seat on the one at the back. That's the ex-hire one, because one of the big things that I use my bike for is commuting. I have a 4-year-old and he travels to nursery on the front of my bike and then back home again afterwards. And if I go to work, I go afterwards on my own. So he loves it. He's great on a bike. It's just getting a bit too big for that front seat, which is really hard because, I don't know, I could put him on a rear mounted seat, but actually, like, I think he's getting old enough that we kind of need to be thinking about a tag-along bike. And that's a scary thought, I think. But yeah, cycling just became everything. It became the way that I'd get around. It became a way to bond with my son. You know, he really, really enjoys going on off-road trails and things like that as well. I think it's really good for him too. It gives him confidence. You know, it's really useful for him to have that time outside every single day as well. You know, and he's quite bossy, so it's nice for him to be able to like go that way, and you know, you should go faster or go slower and things like that. So yeah, next slide, please. What I do with a bike: commute, ride to nursery every day. The photos here, that was a bit tongue-in-cheek. That doesn't exist anymore, but that was my favourite bit of cycling infrastructure in Sheffield for a while, because it just stops there, right in the middle of the city centre. The Peak District, you know, I've ridden my bike to go swimming, lots of adventures, sunshine and picnics. Peak District is incredibly beautiful and something that we have in common with the Manchester lot over here. And gravel riding, it's always fun to get a bit muddy. My least favourite thing is cleaning the bike afterwards, though. And next page. But the main thing that I got out of cycling was sort of self-love. And I think that it's probably a really basic message that, you know, almost seems like a truism to a lot of people, but it's really valuable if you can love your body for what it can do rather than how it looks. And I understand that it doesn't work for everybody, but for me, cycling gave me the ability to see my body as mine, as a thing that I could work on and feel satisfied with. And it wasn't really about how people were perceiving me. It was about what I could do and how I could feel powerful, or how I could feel, how it could take me on adventures, or how it could help me to be a better mother, or, you know, how it could just enable all the things in my life that really mattered. And like, that really shifted myself from being in a place of terrible, terrible body image and self-image to actually sort of living myself as I am. And that's not something that comes easy when you're transgender. So it's something that I'm very happy with, and something that cycling has really given me. And, you know, I do want to acknowledge something on the next page, if that's okay. Oh, wait, no, I've got another slide in the middle I completely forgot about. You know, the things that I like when I'm cycling is climbing on big hills. You know, it's a really nice feeling to be able to go somewhere that you couldn't get before without stopping, and be able to do it now. Bike nerds, you know, the Northern Rollers have been absolutely great. That's like another cycling collective. Especially last summer, it was amazing, and super organized. Like, some of the rides were so good. And then like I did things like, my partner was doing the coast to coast, so I just joined for the last leg of it, and it was so nice riding with a bunch of really nice people. We have a group here in Sheffield called Peak Adventures that's more broad than just cycling, but actually, you know, riding with other queer and transgender people. It's been really nice as well, having like a group of people on bikes, you're all having a great time, full of endorphins, and you've all got things in common. That's brilliant. And then being an evangelist, dragging my friends to beautiful places. That is actually a picture of my girlfriend with her road bike full of mud in a place where she shouldn't really be riding a road bike, because I dragged her to it. But I get to share those things with other people, and that's really nice too. So I have one last slide. And I think it's worth just acknowledging the privilege of being able-bodied and being able to do these things. You know, I feel incredibly grateful that my body cooperated and I could learn to do the things that I was asking of it. You know, I do understand that this is something that's worked for me, and it doesn't necessarily work for everybody. I'm also lucky to have a great community. You know, here in Sheffield, we're very lucky, in the north in general. And also living in Sheffield, we have cycle infrastructure. It's not very good cycle infrastructure, but it exists. You know, I use the cycle lane every day rather than having to go on a big main road to get my son to and from nursery. And Sheffield, in places, is really nice. It's really pretty. And also, because I was doing this slide with my wife earlier, she pointed out that, you know, I am quite lucky in that I am able to fit in, you know, with the group of cyclists that I have locally. And I'm not kind of ostracized. I have access to people who are similar to me, who are doing similar things. And I think that is a huge thing too. So that's the end of my slides. And if you have any questions, I'm very happy to answer them.
Oh, thank you so much, Cara. So many great, like, I've got a lot of friends that are parents now, and I have to wonder, how do they fit in doing the things they love, like cycling and being a parent? And like, oh yes, just so many topics. I'll hand it over to Beth now. I think there's quite a few questions for you in the chat box, and she's going to ask you some questions.
Okay, sure.
Thanks so much, Cara. I think everyone's all super inspired, and we're all. I think we all needed that body confidence talk. I think we all feel that way a lot of the time. So a question from Heidi. I think you may have answered it briefly, but have you joined any local clubs or groups, and did you feel welcomed and included?
Yeah, for sure. The nice thing about Northern Role is actually like a lot of people who are kind of involved in it are gender diverse anyway. So I'm never worried about the trans thing. You know, and I haven't joined any of the mainstream cycling clubs. I didn't like the idea of joining a club that didn't have a no drop policy. You know, I felt like if I was to go to somewhere where it is very competitive and there's like a minimum speed and standard that you have to meet, like maybe sometimes I could meet that standard, but a lot of the time I wouldn't be able to, and I didn't feel like that was what I was looking for. And also like I like riding with people where if you see something beautiful on the way, you stop and have a look and have a nice time and maybe have a sip of water and enjoy the scenery. I'm not a big fan of, you know, just zooming past as fast as you can at full speed all the time.
I think most of us here will agree, yeah, bike rides are more than just bike riding, aren't they? There's so much more to it than that. So no, that's awesome. Anna has gone a bit off topic. I want to know your favourite swimming spots in the Peak District.
I'm actually a very big fan of Agden Reservoir, which sounds really basic because it's quite an obvious choice, but I like when it's close to my house. I like that it has kind of nice privacy. And I went there on a really hot day last summer, and there were loads of people circling the shores, almost like having little parties and swimming and stuff. And it was just such a lovely place. It's one of my favourite spots. You know, and it's nice that because it's a reservoir, the water level changes and you get a different view each time as well.
That's great, thank you. Maybe we'll need to do a ride to there now as well to add to our list of roller skating, ride to the reservoir. Yeah,
I'm not endorsing riding and swimming in reservoirs, by the way. You know, definitely check permission from your local water authorities before swimming in anything outside.
Debs has said, thank you so much, Cara, for sharing your story. It's not easy talking about ourselves. She loves it. Self-love is what you got from cycling. She wants to know what advice you'd give someone who has a low self-image about their body.
I mean, I don't feel like it's my place to give advice, really. I wanted to talk about something that worked for me. You know, and I think that actually one thing that really helped was I was surrounded by people who had a similar philosophy. You know, people who had eating disorders in the past, or who had difficult relationships with their bodies, who kind of overcame that through activity and through kind of athletic achievement almost. So I think if you're in the right community, it's just something that happens, it's something that works out, but I'm afraid I don't really have a general answer, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's great. I think everybody's got a lot from what you've shared already. I think we can all see ourselves in your kind of experiences. So thank you for that. Ayisatu's asked, what helped or helps you feel safe when cycling as a woman?
It sounds really stupid, but being fast helps a lot. You know, I feel a lot safer out riding than I do out walking, because I feel like I can get away from dangerous situations more quickly. As I mentioned, you know, I have been harassed while out running and things like that, and it's a bit of a terrifying situation. It's not always that clear how you can leave. With riding, I guess I just haven't had that many horrible experiences. Like there's the standard catcalling when you're sat waiting for lights and things like that, but mostly just riding in familiar places. I don't generally ride at night. And if I do, I'm usually as part of the group.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's quite common, I think, for women to feel safer riding than they do walking. So yeah, it does offer that different freedom, I suppose. Mm-hmm. And one final question I think we've got we've got a great link actually shared in the chat by Richard around Emily Bridges, who's a trans woman and elite cyclist, one to read for later. And final question from Stephen about your son, and what age did your son feel the balance when riding with you? For example, not wriggle around and risk tipping you over.
He was really good from quite a young age, actually. You know, and he still has moments where like he tells deliberately trying to push me over. But yeah, for the most part, like he's always leaned when I lean. I think I started cycling with him when he was 2. But he's never really struggled with that side of it. So we've been quite lucky. I know that some kids find that aspect of it quite hard, but I think that actually the front mounted seat is really good for that, because they're sort of holding onto the handlebars, and that gives them a sort of natural steer in a certain direction. For a while, on the straight bar bike, I had like another second sort of set of handlebars on top of the original handlebars for him to hold on to, so that I could have like I could have room for my actual hands to hold on to it. We switched to a bike with kind of drop bars now, so he has the middle section to hold on to, and then I hold on to the drops, which works quite well actually. But that sort of having me actually holding on to the bike properly really helps with his sense of balance, I think.
Great, thank you so much. Some tips, I think, for some parents out there who are probably thinking of doing the same. That's amazing. Cool, thank you so much for joining us, Cara. That's amazing. If anyone else has got any further questions, we can always pop them over to Cara later, or she can put them in the chat. So thank you very much. Back to you, Roseanne.
Yeah, thank you so much, Cara. It's just so much to think about, like feeling safe as a woman, like body image, just yes, so many things. So thank you for sharing your story. So moving on to our final speaker for tonight, we've got Saoirse, who I think said based all the way down in Oxford. So thank you, Saoirse, for joining us. Her sort of cycling stories, it's a way to satisfy her desire for adventure. Her latest being the 3 Peak Challenge, but with the added difficulty of aiming to break the women's group record of completing it in under 87 hours. So I'd like to hand over to Saoirse.
Done the classic. Yeah, I think I'll just share my screen now. Let's see if that works. Can you, is it working?
I can see it.
Yeah, spot on.
Sorry. Is it full screen yet? No. There we go, slideshow from start. That's black now. Yeah, it's good. Is it working? You can see picture?
Yeah. Perfect.
Cool. So first of all, that was I feel quite nervous now following that talk. It's really, really cool. So following all 3 really good talks, and it's a bit different. What I'm going to talk about a challenge I did last year. But before I go into the challenge too much, I just wanted to introduce my 2 teammates, my 2 friends that I did it with. So that's me in the middle, and then on my left is Emily. If I was to describe Emily, she'd be like a Duracell bunny that never like runs out of energy. Like she's a shepherdess, and she basically lives outside in all the elements, like pinning down sheep. She's just really inspirational, super positive, really amazing person. A bit scary because she just laps you in the hills all the time, but amazing teammate. And then on my other side is my other friend called Cass. The way I describe her is, they say people can either be radiators or drains, where they like radiate positive energy in a group, or they like drain that away. Cass is like a radiator set to max. So whether something's gone good or something's gone bad, you're going to be laughing about it, and it's going to be yeah, you're always going to see the funny side. So really super lucky to have met these 2. We actually worked together about 5 or 6 years ago, and then we got split all across the UK. So each year we'd meet up and we'd do like just a little hike or a walk or something outdoors, because we all quite like the outdoors. And 2019, Cass, she just like messaged saying, I've got my first bike as an adult. So we were like, let's do a bike adventure this year. So we decided, let's do the coast to coast. And I don't know if anyone has done the coast to coast here, but we massively underestimated the hills. There are such hills going through. We went from Whitehaven to Sunderland, but then you go up the hill and then you go down the hill, and that was amazing. I think before we even finished the end of that, we were like, this is so much fun. It was the first time like Cass and Emily had done like multi-day bikes, and it was just brilliant. We decided before we finished we were going to do the North Coast 500 the following year, and that's like a 500-mile loop up in Scotland. So 2020 came and they had the pandemic in February, but luckily the kind of restrictions lifted, and that August we did the North Coast 500. So this picture is actually from the North Coast 500, and it's this beautiful day. The scenery is stunning. It's really lovely. Super lucky. And then the next night we have, we had this massive storm came in, and we're all huddled in Cass. She's got one man tent, so we're all huddled in there, and we're talking about kind of challenges that we want to do, things we'd like to do in the future. We're talking about the pandemic, what we can do to help, and we kind of thought, well, why don't we do a massive challenge and try and fundraise some money for some charities and people that have been affected. I think we could all kind of empathise with previous situations we've been in our life, how easy it is to end up somewhere where you're quite vulnerable. And Cass was turning 30 the following year, and she was saying that she wanted to do the 3 peaks where you do Snowdon, Scarfell and Ben Nevis. And before I knew it, these like words just slipped out of my mouth, and I was like, we should do that and cycle. And then everyone was like, yeah, that sounds amazing, let's do that idea. And we were like, how quick should we do it in? And we thought, well, okay, there's 3 of us, there's 3 mountains, why don't we do it in 3 days? And we had no concept of what that meant. So I think the longest we'd cycle for this, we were like, we trained to do this North Coast 500. It's quite a long trip, and we were doing about 100k about a day, and that was like the longest we'd cycled. And then Cass got back. She wrote on like one of these forums saying, we're thinking about doing this in 3 days. Does anybody have any advice or any route? And someone commented back saying, if you do it in 3 days, you'll break the woman's record. The woman's record is 87. And we just thought, whoa, that's mental. It just seems so far beyond our concept. Yeah, so we were like, well, why not give it a go? It'll sound good if we're trying to raise money. What's the worst that can happen? So this was our plan. So let me miss this. The total mileage is about 720 kilometers. I think the longest day was actually the first day. We were supposed to do 280k, and then it was 240 and then 200. And it seems to not make sense because you start with the Snowdon, Scarfell Pike and Ben Nevis. The mountains actually get bigger as you go up. But the idea is that you have a southwesterly prevailing wind. So you're supposed to have a tailwind the whole time. You just get pushed up. But unfortunately for us, we had headwind for most of the time, and that kind of set the theme for the first kind of couple of days. So I'm just going to go through, and I've got a couple of videos and stuff. So this is Thursday night. We camped at the base of Snowdon, and the weather was horrendous. It was so bad. Emily, in the middle of the night, I just heard a scream, and she was like, my tent's blown away, and the top of her tent blown away. So we had to run through the marsh and get that. So we were a bit sleep deprived when we started. So this is Snowdon. We weren't allowed to have people on the cycle with us, but we could have people join us for the mountains. This woman just right of Cass, she's actually a full-time teacher. So she came out, she joined us for the mountain, got back and got into work for 7 o'clock in the morning and taught a full day, which I just think is absolutely amazing. Yeah, so we made it to the top of Snowdon a couple of hours later. We got this beautiful view. It was stunning, as you can see. And then we came back down, and we were a bit late, really, this whole time target, basically because it was so cold. And it was like, do you know when you go swimming and then you always take longer after the swimming trying to take off like wet clothes, and we're trying to get warm, and we had like a downhill section. Yeah, so we were like running behind from the very start. This was our plan for the first day. So this is actually our longest day, and Cass had split up our route so every like 3 hours we'd stop and we'd have a snack, yeah, and just kind of get warm. So our first kind of place was Rill here, and that's us trying to find shelter in a bus shelter, and shelter from the wind and the rain. Oh, this is a clip of this is what it was like for the first day. Both Cass and Emily's phone, they had it in dry bags and they both broke because the rain got through. But on the plus side, once you're kind of soaked, you can't get any more wet. So yeah, it is what it is then. Yeah, and then our second stop, I'll just play you a little clip of our second stop here.
So it is 5:20. We've done 100 miles now, which means we're just over halfway of of the cycling part. Yeah, we're just about to smash off. We're at the famous Tesco's. It's been pretty tough so far. I would say it's been pretty tough. Lots of headwind, lots of rain, a lot of like traffic lights. It's been slow going, but I'm gonna smash the next part. So
I think it's quite funny. This is from the third stop in the day, and you can just like slowly see these like eye bags get larger and larger as I see the pictures. So this is I'll just play the video.
So quick update, our mileage now is what? 200 kilometers, which I'll let you into secret is the longest that any of the three of us ever cycled. We've got another 80 kilometers to go, and we should be arriving about 1 a.m. for a nice 3 hours sleep before we wake up tomorrow at 4 to do it all again. Yay!
I sound a bit in disbelief at this point, but basically I think the furthest we'd ever cycled was for the training. Was about 100 miles, and going before we started, obviously with the fundraising, you've got to tell people that you're doing it, you've got to actually announce it to the world. Yeah, and at that point where we did 200k, I was like, whoa, I've never cycled this far, that's crazy, and I've climbed a mountain and I feel okay. I was like, we might actually be able to do this, because up until that point I was like, well, I'll give it a go. But I don't think I ever believed that we would make it. Well, I believed that the girls would make it, but I didn't know if I would make it. And this is us Ambleside that night. So we got there just before 1. We stayed in a hostel. It was all great. The next morning was super tough. So we were late again because Cass's phone had broken. We needed her phone for the route, and it took ages. Emily's bike had loads of mechanicals. We couldn't get it on the granny gear, and she really needed the granny gear the last 2 because the hills were coming. So we were super late. We were really tired. We still had like really far to go. I think we're just a bit like, whoa. And then we got to Scarfell Pike. So it took about 2 hours cycling, got to Scarfell Pike, and all of our mates were there, and it was absolutely incredible. And they all joined us. We got another beautiful view. It was brilliant. And we were just buzzing at this point. Then we came down, and it's not like the most amazing picture, but it just kind of shows you the chaos that was happening. So like, I'm trying to get warm into a dry robe. Cass and Emily are both trying to like shove as much food in as possible and get changed. And then we had all these, like some of Cass's family come, and other people, because a lot of them are, Cass and Emily are both from Yorkshire, so they came across. Then you have this double guilt where people have come to see you, and you want to speak to them and give them the time, but also you're like, oh, I have to go. So that was super tough. We actually were like 2 hours late. We were 1:30 here, and we had to cycle to Glasgow. So when you're leaving, you're like, oh my days, that's such a far way to cycle. Anyway, this was our stop. So that day we had to do whatever mileage, 240 miles. This is our only puncture of the trip. 1 puncture, it's pretty good. We went to Gretna Green. None of us got married. It's great. The headwinds stopped, which was fab, but then the midges came out, so it was a bit of a, win for win situation. I'll play. This is Anantil Services. I think we're running a bit short time. Basically, it was 8:45. We got to Annandale Services, and I was like, we still have 100k left to go. Like 100k is a long ride, and we're starting almost at 9 o'clock. That's a long time. So I figured at that point we wouldn't be finishing till about 1:30 in the morning.
Cass just told.
So we arrived, we stayed just south of Glasgow again, and we stayed in like a little accommodation place.
We started at 4:30 this morning.
Yesterday morning.
I fell off, and there's a lot of it. It's good, it's great.
Yeah, so surprisingly, we arrived there quite late. We're all pretty tired, but I don't know, when you're with your friends and they both balance you out. So when you're not having a good time, somebody else is having a good time, or you can see when other people are flagging. So we're still pretty happy and pretty like we're almost there. And this is the last day, so we had a couple of stops. It was actually our shortest day, and then we had Ben Nevis to do in the last day. I'm not going to play this video because it's just me talking about how my legs are sore. But I will show you this very unflattering picture of how tired and these massive eye bags that I had. Basically my knees were getting really sore, I think just because my muscles, like every time I stood still or I still for a long period of time, my muscles I think all seized up, and that caused my knees to be sore. But once I was cycling for like 45 minutes, they were okay. So I just took loads of ibuprofen, and that kind of sorted me out. And then the sun came out, and it was so beautiful. Like this part of Scotland, the Loch Lomond, is like stunning. You're cycling through and there's mountains everywhere, and you're like, wow. Yeah, it's really cool. The only kind of downside was it was a really sunny day in Scotland. We're relatively near Glasgow, and the cars there was just so many cars, and they would just like cut you up, or they'd overtake coming towards you. So you were kind of a bit on edge with that. But we try to stay close together. That was the only kind of like downside. But look at the mountains, really cool. So we got to Ben Nevis. I think we wanted to do, so the record was 87, and we'd said we wanted to do under 72. So I think at this stage now we had like 11 hours to climb Ben Nevis. So we were like, sweet. And this is the view from the top of Ben Nevis. Like we actually got a view. It was so good. Apparently you only get like 10 or 15 days of a view from Ben Nevis. So I'm so grateful that was the last day that we got that. Yeah, it was phenomenal. And then we did it. We got back down just after midnight, so we did the record in 67 hours something, which beat the other record, I don't know, 20 hours. I think, to be honest, the most important thing for me anyway was we actually raised quite a lot of money. So we're raising money for Trussell Trust, but that was a nice little cherry. And everyone always asks how we celebrated. Basically, we went to Wetherspoons the next morning, and I had 3 breakfasts, and we popped a champagne. But that was, or prosecco, whatever it was. But yeah, that was it. And now I've got to figure out how to stop sharing this. Stop recording? No. Stop here. Cool. And how do I make you admin again?
If you go next to, go to participants, find Beth, Lady Paddle, and then under more, you should be able to, oh, I can do it actually, I can reclaim hosting. Okay. There we go. Excellent. Thank you very much. Well done.
Yeah, thank you so much, Saoirse. Wow, you did it in 67.5 hours. So that you basically hold the world record.
Yeah, but
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I would like to say that other people could definitely beat it, because we spent a long time at the bottom of Snowdon eating all lots of food. So, and the men's record is like something ridiculous, like 40 hours or maybe even sub that. So I really want to see like a women's group go out and smash it all, like not just really, yeah. So any one of you.
Yeah, well, maybe if you, like you said, you didn't stop for food, maybe you'd smash it.
Yeah, maybe, but done it now, so.
Yeah, you've done it. Yeah, you already hold it. So I think there's a couple of questions which Lois, if wherever she is, she's going to ask the questions now. There she is.
Yeah, we've got some questions in the chat. That was absolutely amazing to listen to that story, honestly, and I'm so happy you got that view on the last mountain. I think you really deserve that after all of that rain and cloudy weather. Yeah, we've got some questions in the chat. So Heidi has asked, what were your coping mechanisms from an emotional perspective, as well as the physical side of the challenge?
I think, I don't want to say that it's as much mental as it is physical, because there's definitely a huge physical element there, but it is like there's a large element of it, like it was mentally tough. And I think that's why a lot of women do really well in those endurance kind of type situations. For me, a large strength came with having Cass and Emily. Like I said, we are all kind of balancing out, and we're good friends. We know now, like Cass is so bubbly, and I know when she goes quiet, there's something, like she's not doing okay. She'll not complain, but she'll just go quiet, and that's whenever you kind of know how to deal and how to. You're like, I need to be extra, upbeat so I can bring other people up, or if something's just a bit rubbish, you see the funny side of the rubbish bit rather than like, complaining about it being rubbish. And that was really good. I think since doing that challenge, that made me realize, wow, I never thought I'd be capable of doing something like that. But also then I was like, I wonder, could I do something like that on my own, or like something like a challenge on my own without that support, because I rely so much on them and they, each other. So I think that massively helped. And I'm still learning how to like manage on my own. That's a completely different ball game, and how to manage that and how to keep that positive talk. I think sometimes, so like when I'm on my own now, if I see like a big hill, I just be like, oh, I can't wait to do this hill. It's gonna be so much fun. And it's not.
No, but I think it's good after to focus on that end point, isn't it? And imagine what you might feel like when you get to it. I'm sure we'll be hearing from you in a few years that you've done a solo challenge as well. I'm sure you're more than capable of it. But it's really lovely to hear like the bond between the three of you doing that challenge together. It's really special. Got another question from Caroline, asking for tips for staying comfortable in the saddle, which is something we're probably all thinking of as you cycled so far.
Yeah, so when we did the coast to coast, like I got to the end of it, and like we weren't, like, we literally, and I'm not trained to cycle or anything. That was just like off the cuff. We decided, let's do this. And I had like a man's saddle, and it got to the end of it. And obviously I said that the hills from the coast to coast are mega. So our quads and our legs were burning, but also it was so bad that we couldn't sit down. So you're like, it's too uncomfortable to sit in the saddle, but it's also like so uncomfortable to like stand up. And actually, what I did this year is I invested in a woman's saddle, and that has massively helped. So I think like everyone's a bit different on what kind of saddle works for them. I've got like a specialized one, and I really like rate it 100%. But I think with that, you just have to like trial and error what works for you, because everyone's body is a bit different. But worth the investment. The best thing I've done is to get like a woman's specific saddle.
Yeah, that's something that we at Lady Pedal have been talking about, trying to get together like a saddle library, so that people can have the opportunity to try different types of saddles to make it as comfortable as possible. Yeah, well, I'm glad you invested in that before your big challenge. How long did you train for, Lily's asking? Was it a kind of really intense training thing, or did you just go into it with that mental strength?
No. So I'd never, before that, I'd done like a couple of like little small cycling trips, like adventure things over the summer, like when the weather's nice. I'm normally like a fair weather cyclist, and that just terrified me. So we decided, let's do it, and then both Cass and were like, yes, we're going to do it, and I was like, cool, I guess we're going to do it then. And I think I was the weakest, because they're both from Yorkshire as well. Like you were saying earlier, like there's so many hills, so I'm always the last up the hill, and I always felt like the weakest cyclist. So I was like, I'm gonna like go out in the winter, and that was the first time I had cycles throughout the winter. And then I like had been cycling for a while, and I was like, okay, I think I'm good enough to join like my local cycling club. And I went out with them, and actually when I joined them, I was like, oh, I could have joined them months ago, and then I would have company rather than like trying to learn how to cycle by myself. But I think you just underestimate yourself a lot. Yeah, so I went out with them, and that was amazing training. Just, I think I didn't have any training plan. All I did was like, I'm going to not stop cycling. So I'm going to like continue to cycle throughout the winter and try and like cycle a couple of times a week and try and then get out with them. And then when you go out with a group, then you push yourself a little bit harder than you would on your own, because you're keeping up with other people and you don't even realize that you're just having a conversation, and then you're like, oh, I've cycled, that's the fastest I've cycled, or you know, gone a bit further and I didn't notice it, or yeah, that was it. And I think that's whenever that was over lockdown as well, and the roads were quiet, and then you're like, wow, this cycling's actually really nice. It's like nice for your mental space and all those other things, that aspects that I hadn't had before, that I was like, this is really cool. Yeah. Oh,
it sounds like brilliant. Kind of, great to hear your cycling story and your experiences that led you to that challenge. Great. Well, I think time's up there. So I'll pass back to Roseanne, but thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you to all of our four.
Can I jump in quickly? There was one more question, I think, from Ayisatu for Sosha, if it's okay. That was, what would you say encouraged you to keep cycling as a young woman, as she's struggling to get high school girls into cycling?
So I was thinking back about what Ayisatu said earlier. So that point of, I think regardless of whether it's like your first time like to actually like cycle in a straight line, or whatever your boundary or comfort level is, actually like accomplishing that's a pretty big thing, because you're like, whoa, I can't believe I just did that. I haven't like continuously been cycling, so I've always loved the outdoors and been into outdoorsy stuff, but only actually really got into cycling the last couple of years. And I think the hooks for me have been, one, that sense of like accomplishing something, so like setting like a little goal and being like, whoa, that's crazy, I've done something that I didn't think I'd be able to do. Two, like this sense of freedom, that you can go so far on a bike that you can't go by running. You're like, whoa, I've just gone, like when we were in Scarfell, we're like, we have to go cycle to Glasgow, like that's mental. And then you're there and you're like, whoa, I'm in Glasgow, I can't believe I just did that, like that's a far way. And like, even just like being able to cycle from your home to work, you're like, I've just cycled to work where I normally would drive a car. It's a different sense of freedom, and the adventure, and then the mental space. I think, I don't know, all of those things add up, and I think everyone's just got to find what their own hook is. I personally think it's that like sense of accomplishment of every day, whether it's a big cycle or a small cycle, makes your day better.
Oh, thank you so much to all of our amazing speakers tonight. Thank you, Sosha, Eve, Cara, and Ayisatu. Like, so many amazing topics we've touched on, like being a parent and still being able to cycle, body image, challenging yourself, smashing records. What did Ayisatu say just about getting out there and just do it, no excuses? Eve's comment about cycling is just good in every way, isn't it? It's like good for the environment, it's good for mental health. Just so many amazing topics. But what we'd like to do now, we've got about sort of 10 minutes left. If anyone has any thing they'd like to say, any thing that's inspired them, we've got some amazing comments in the chat box, which either Beth can gather and share with you, or if anyone would like to speak, speak now. And we'd love to hear from some of our amazing guests that have joined us this evening.
I've got some great messages in the chat. I know there's some amazing women on this call. Well, you all are, so some great stories out there. So please do, if you would like to share and chat briefly, we'd love to hear from you. Either pop your name in the chat or put your hand up or just shout out. We've got a nice comment from Debbie saying she loves her bike and trains really hard and was really fit when she had diagnosis of breast cancer on New Year's Eve. She managed to keep training and had surgery 4 weeks ago. Back on her bike after a 5-hour surgery on day 9. Would have been sooner, but listen to my medical advice. Good, that's exactly what you should do. We're all guilty of rushing straight into things. Her bike has kept her sane and her headspace in the right place. More treatment ahead, but her bike will get her through. So that's amazing, Debbie. Keep riding. We wish you all the best with your health. And we're so glad your bike's been there for you when you really needed it. That's awesome. Some great messages from people thanking the speakers. Lots of thanks, great stories, lots of bike mad women. Yes, I think that probably does sum us up pretty well, I think.
If that's all the comments, we just want to thank all our amazing speakers. Thank you for everyone that's joined us. This is what Lady Pedal's all about, really. It's just women, and obviously we've got some men here as well, just feeling safe, being able to share their cycling stories to inspire other people, which I think it has done tonight. And different people have commented and obviously hopefully got some really great ideas, and hopefully it will encourage everyone to just get out there more. And obviously the sun is starting to shine well here in Manchester anyway, so we look forward to the summer months. As I said before, you can join us on all our social media, which I think is in the chat box, and we can put again, and you can find out about some more Lady Pedal. We'll have some really cool rides throughout the summer. We'll have some more events online and in person, and some other great, maybe like food bank rides, some stuff to like raise money. But yeah, you can follow us. I want to thank Manchester Active and This Girl Can again for supporting us, and obviously Eve, Cara, Ayisatu and Saoirse for speaking with us tonight. So if there's no other comments that people want to share, then I think maybe we can wrap it up. I don't know if Beth, you've got any last words?
No, that's great. Just thank you so much everyone for joining. Thank you Roseanne for hosting, and all the other Lady Pedal gals for supporting and working on the project. And yeah, there's some great sharing of connections in the chat, so we'll hang around here and let people share their social media and things and stay in touch, because yeah, it's just one big community, isn't it, which is really nice. So it's been a great evening. Happy International Women's Day everybody, and thank you for joining us. Good night.